Are my judges ready? My mom was a teenage mother, and looking back on it, I now realize the struggles that she endured. But as a young child, I never wondered when my next meal would be or if I'd have shoes when mine wore out. My mom had support that most teen moms don't have. And because of, sorry, my mom was one of 615,000 teenage moms in the US per year. Hello, my name is Elizabeth Barnett, and for my senior project, I wanted to help teenage moms as well as learn more about how sex education can prevent teenage pregnancies. Anyone who's going to argue against sex education in public high schools is going to say that family education should be taught by the family. Parents should be the ones teaching their children, not school teachers. But only 71% of teenagers say they have spoken to their parents about saying no to sexual intercourse or different types of birth control. It should be the parents, not legislators, teaching what is taught in classrooms. But most parents say that they want coping skills, how to say no, communication skills, all the way into parenthood taught in schools. And if you don't educate your teens, it affects their safety. There are many risks after intercourse, some of these being getting an STI, STD, or having a teen pregnancy. These teenagers can also experience regret. 2 out of 3 teenagers say they regret initiating intercourse. And some of this regret can even lead to abortions. Prevention needs to be taught in the classroom. The only 100% effective way to prevent a teen pregnancy is abstinence, but this proves to not be the most effective method. The state of Mississippi has abstinence-only programs in all of their high schools, but they have the highest rate of gonorrhea in the United States. Contraception needs to be taught in the classrooms as well. Part of this is condoms and the different types of birth control, such as birth control pills, shots, and IUDs. Just as sexual intercourse has its risks, so does a pregnancy. Part of this can be intense sickness, poor mental and emotional health, as well as social, economical, and financial challenges, as well as educational troubles. And when these parents experience social, economical, and financial struggles, that can also affect their emotional and mental health. This can affect them raising their child. Part of the pregnancy risk is also a stillbirth, preterm birth, neonatal mortality, and health and developmental issues for the child. The impact is not only on the parents, it is also on the children. These children can experience educational troubles, are more likely to be in foster care, incarcerated, abused, and are more likely to become teenage parents themselves. With the parents being teenagers, these children are not getting the proper home security that they need, and with that, all of these struggles are probably going to come. The parents aren't only affected by the pregnancy, they're also affected after the baby is born. The baby has financial as well as physical needs. Part of these financial needs are car seats, strollers, cribs, diapers, and wipes. Their physical needs are fed, burped, rocked, and changed. And these physical needs are going to be met throughout the day and night. So these parents are losing sleep. So that is impacting their jobs and their education. For my product, I wanted to help moms in need, specifically teenage mothers. So I reached out to my local pregnancy resource center. And I did a diaper and wipe drive at my church and the school. I made blankets with my child development class. And I did some volunteer work down at the Pregnancy Resource Center. For my drive, I found the boxes and wrapped 2 of them in blue paper and 2 of them in pink paper and put pictures and some words on them. And then I placed these boxes, 2 of them at my church and 2 of them here at the school. And I got a ton of donations from my church. My church went beyond the diaper and wipe ask, and they brought in pacifiers and onesies as well. Then on to my blanket making. I had to buy my materials. I had to first figure out what materials to use, which was a slight struggle. Then I had to find the class time with Mrs. Ryan, and I also had to work on them outside of class a little bit. my class and I ended up making 10 blankets altogether. For my volunteering, I helped clean and organize. With my cleaning, I went down to the Pregnancy Resource Center in West Plains and wiped down a bunch of their surfaces and the toys that they have for the babies to keep the mamas and the babies healthy. And then with my organizing, a lot of the donations I got went to the outreach center that West Plains has in Mountain View, and they had no organization at all. They had very few resources over there, so I got to label and organize all of the shelves. As any senior project has its challenges, mine had a few. The first of them was finding a mentor. I had to find a mentor who was educated in this area as well as had the time to help me. I ended up having to have 2 mentors to help me. Mrs. Lindsay Ryan was one of them, and my second one was Teresa Joyner, director of the Pregnancy Resource Center. I also struggled with getting participation. My church had abundance of participation, but school did not have quite the same effect. My main target here was getting teenagers to help donate, but most of us don't have jobs, so it's hard to find the money to go out and buy diapers and wipes. But the teachers were amazing in this aspect and gave quite a few donations. Also, I had never made any sort of blanket before in my life, so I had to completely figure out how to make a blanket, even a simple tie blanket. So I had to do a lot of research online of what materials to use, where to buy my materials, and how to make these blankets. Then I had to teach my child development class how to make these blankets as well, which was a bit of a struggle, considering I hadn't done any of the experimentation of making these blankets at home. Then my budgeting. I wanted to get the cute girly fabrics that Walmart had, but they were almost $10 per yard of it. So I had to opt for less cute patterns, but they were cheaper with the materials. My mom was a senior in high school when she had me, and I am so thankful that she had the support that she did so I can be at the place I am today. And I wanted to give the same support to other teenage mothers and help those who have the potential to become a teenage mother. Thank you. Do my judges have any questions? Yes.
So when you first started talking about the material in the blankets, and you talked about, and you kind of went on discuss in a little bit more detail, but were there any considerations about what kinds of fabrics are like good for babies versus bad for babies, with chemicals or the texture or anything like that?
We looked a little bit at the texture and like the weight of the blankets, but fleece blankets ended up being the easiest to make them out of. So you can even use those for car seat covers though.
What is something that you think would make it easier for teenagers to be able to talk to their parents or another trusted adult? What is holding teenagers back from that, being able to bridge that gap?
I'm not 100% sure. Like in my research, there was a lot of, most of the teachers had like boxes in the classrooms, and the students could put questions in there anonymously, and then the teacher would go over it later.
How many hours did you spend total volunteering?
I spent 2 8-hour days, so roughly 16 hours, I would think. Yes.
So it seemed like the emphasis of here was helping teenage moms. What kind of support do you think that teenage fathers need?
Probably a lot of mental and emotional support, and someone being there for them the whole time, because I feel like moms have someone there a lot more, but the fathers don't. So down at the Pregnancy Resource Center, they offer different types of classes as well as a fatherhood Bible study. Do my judges have any more questions? Okay, thank you.
I'm glad you're back here. No, we're leaving for some. That's what I heard. Yeah, that's great. Yes. I need some technical assistance. My mouse, my mouse doesn't seem to be working. Okay, if it's not. Yeah, I learned it the easy way, I asked. hear you in the restroom.
Oh, it doesn't make me loud though.
No.
Okay. I'm gonna see how this thing works. Reasonable to stand with my hands in my pockets, or is that gonna cook me? Because I move my hands a lot, and like I did get counted off for moving my hands a lot. So I feel like if I put them in my pocket, I'm just gonna keep the clicker in my pocket too. Until I push the wrong button, I'm shooting the laser out of my pants. We only need down though, I guess. Yeah. Are my judges ready? So as we know, vehicular travel is part of everyday life. Today I'm going to be talking about how aftermarket bumpers do help when it comes into collision or even hitting animals along the road. My name is Bryson Ortega, and this is Bumpers Built for Battle. Research sparked interest in fabrication. When it started, I really wasn't even going to build a bumper, but I was talking to a teacher named Miss Buster, and it got on to talking about trucks, and her truck, then my truck. I would both have trucks, and then she hit something previously, as a couple months before that. She was talking about how she needed an aftermarket bumper, and it sparked interest into what I wanted to do. And I was like, you know what, I kind of need one too. And so I got into it from there. This thing's not really, there it goes. Safety, interior, exterior, and seatbelt safety. Seatbelt is the biggest concern. It's even a law. It's being enforced pretty harshly now. But they're getting better at enforcing it. Seatbelts do save your life. It is great to wear them when it comes to driving everyday life. Exterior safety, this comes into things, it breaks it down even to the wheels that you have on your vehicle is part of safety. But I'm going to cover bumpers because I feel like that's a big concern when it comes to the new made manufactured cars. interior safety things like your airbags, airbag deployment. It's safe, but sometimes it's unsafe. Um, it's all just part of it. When they come out, they're very hot. It can lead to burns. It could blast your eyes and leave them very red for a couple of weeks. New car bumpers. So what I'm going to talk about mostly is the snug fit design. And you can see that as to here on that blue car up top, around the headlights, there is zero gap for energy management. None whatsoever. But if you look at this Ford down here with this aftermarket bumper, there's gap all the way around it. That's where energy is managed when it comes into play when you hit stuff. When you manage energy, it's not all taken at one time. It kind of allows movement in the bumper itself, which leads on to durability. The more durability the bumper can withstand, then the better you are after you hit something head on. That's what I covered, is just the front bumper. I didn't do a rear bumper or anything else. And fabrication. Took a lot of cutting out of a big sheet of metal. We had to bend it. We have a big bender that bends the metal the way you want it in Votech. And then welding, of course. The planning, where? I did it at the Votech. I was thinking about all the places that I could do this, but not every place has a big sheet metal bender. So it came down to Votech because we have all the resources we need to get it done. Researching a blueprint. Me and my Votech teacher, Mr. Wages, he helped me. We had pulled up off of a online, it was a bumper manufacturing company that made them, and we did a small changes for better fit, but we got the blueprint off of prefabricated bumpers so it would line up right because I didn't want it to look too harsh. Where to get materials, we had to call different places, but we ended up going to Grove to get the materials because it was the cheapest, because I was already out quite a bit of money in the project. I would have saved as much as I could. The process, gathering materials, that's what I had to take my truck and go all the way to Grove to get it. I picked up the metal that I needed and then came back, dropped it off at the Votech place a couple weeks prior. Forming the metal, that was just with the bender, like I said, forming the sheet into the ways that it needed to bend to fit the front of my truck the way it should, and welding together. That was just pretty, I mean, it was pretty easy to do. I'm not the best welder, but I can do stuff pretty quick, so it goes a little faster. Challenges, finding a matching blueprint. Like I said, we had to make quite a few adjustments within the headlights there. You can see where it's rounded at the corners of the bumper. That's the way my headlights are on those early third gen trucks. It's hard to get them to match up correct and actually look fine without too much gap because I just think it's ugly. That was just a personal thing. So finding a matching blueprint that would fit that the way I wanted it was kind of hard. It took us a couple days of online looking just to find what would come close to what I wanted. Learning new fabrication tools as the bender, like I said, I've never ran one before. And our plasma cutter, it's all computer, and I'm not computer savvy at all. I can't figure them out worth anything. I can't even submit my assignments at school, let alone run one of these to cut metal the way I want it to. Prepping and painting, it was kind of hard because it's set in a shop and then moved outside. So when it came down to it, we had to knock all the rust off of it, and then the primer wouldn't stick to it because we didn't prep it correctly. So it was a pain, and it ended up costing me even more money in paint because it wouldn't stick. It just kept chipping. And do my judges have any questions? Don't fight over me, guys.
So when you were talking about the prepping and painting and you hadn't properly primed it, did you have to like go back and sand it back down?
Yes, we did.
Okay. How did you sand it?
We just used an Orbit sander.
Okay.
It was just, most people have them in their garages, really. It was, I can't remember what, it was all in the prepping, but I got it at Wagner's. It was Rhino Line is what it was. If you want my honest opinion, no. Everything I've learned at that school, I've taught myself. They don't really try as hard as what you would find at other schools, because I've been to other schools in welding competitions, and being there for the 4 hours that I was doing my competition, I've learned more than what I've been taught at the Votech facility. Yeah.
I have a question about the safety issue. So I can see that, because I used to drive a big Chevy truck and it had the big bumper on the front. But here's what I found out. I used to be really bad about taking my foot off the brake when I was at the stop sign.
Mm-hmm.
The car would creep forward. And when I ran into the Mercedes-Benz in front of me, my truck was fine, but I caused like $3,000 worth of damage to the back of that. So, I mean, did you think about that at all? Like, yeah, I'm protected, but what about the other person?
I mean, not really, because all I thought about was your own safety, but usually people don't let the foot off their brake at a stop
That's
sign,
true.
so.
But I'm also thinking like.
You gotta think about that as well.
But I'm also thinking in another accident. Do you think it might cause more damage?
It might.
Yeah. But that's why we have insurance.
Yeah, that's right. I'd buy one.
Was it the difficulty or the time consuming?
Time consuming. It's easier just to buy one and put it on.
But the skills that you learned doing this, tell me how you can apply those in the future. Like what other projects you might use?
When I graduate, I do plan to weld later on in life. It's what I want to do. It's more or less just the welding part, because I do not want to fabricate. I want to work where we have pipe fitters that do fit the pipe before I weld it. But the welding alone is just a better experience.
Thank you, ladies. See you later. I hope so. All right, take care. Time for a little dinner. Good break. So Miss Combs' room, Sophia Barrett's project, it sounded like they were running a jackhammer right outside of Miss Combs' window. We couldn't even hear her. She had to like scream. Yeah. We should have yelled at them before she started. We should have been like, can you just wait, you know, just 10 minutes? Yeah. What was it? The roofers. Yeah. Because they were trying to get it in the rooms that were not affected by the roofers.
see it.
Well, he doesn't have a shop, but that's next year's project. That's all for him. Now, wait till the neighbors see his truck parked there. Whoa.
Hey guys, I just wanted to remind you that we are live streaming and if you make sure that your cell phones are on silent. And then City Insider session 2603. Are my judges ready? So my entire life, I've been the sickly child out of me and my siblings. I wasn't the healthiest eater. I was pretty picky, actually. And so this led to me not being able to gain weight very easy. So doctors have always been concerned about my weight gain and my nutrition for a really long time. And the only time I've seen positive changes in my health whenever I had a more well-rounded diet and I ate authentic proteins. Well-rounded diets are vital for human life. Without them, we can't be as healthy as God made for us to be. Hi, my name is Sydney Seigert, and I believe that proper animal nutrition leads to overall proper human health. Artificial meats are pumped full of substances that lead to a loss in nutritional value for humans. Agriculture needs to better advocate for the animals and be more vocal about the advantages of eating authentic meats. Whenever it comes to nutrition, when it comes to fake meats, there's absolutely no nutrition in it. They lack the essential nutrients that are found in authentic meats, and so because of that, meat analogs, which is another word for fake meats, have been recently classified as a group 1 carcinogen. And just so everyone understands the severity of this, carcinogens are cancer-causing materials. So fake meats as a whole are really bad for you. Fake meats also cannot fully replicate proteins. Proteins have so many factors in them that are just impossible to replicate. So whenever artificial meat companies try to do it, they just can't capture a protein in its entirety. Fake meats are also made of legumes, which is a crop from the soy family, and it's used a lot in artificial meats because there are certain minerals such as B vitamins, iron, and zinc found in legumes, but it still lacks the 9 essential amino acids that are found in completed proteins. So because of this, artificial meats are also classified as incomplete proteins. Artificial meats also leave a negative impact on the environment. In America, it's typical for people to overconsume. So when putting another substance into consumers' hands, such as artificial meats, people will just buy it and not get rid of what they already had, which causes overconsumption. Charlie Mitchell, the author of Impossible Dream, stated that meat consumption is expected to rise 12% by the year 2029. He also cites a man by the name of Richard York in his study. He did a study on eating habits from the years 1961 to 2013. And whenever other meats or substitutes were placed into consumers' hands, they didn't get rid of what they already had and they just bought more. And he calls this the displacement paradox. Eating a balanced diet is also just very important for humans. Nutrients are vital for maintaining the key functions of a person's body. Proteins are important for maintaining cell and body processes of people. Macronutrients and other nutrients are important for people to be able to sustain life. There are certain other macronutrients other than proteins that are important for a well-rounded diet, such as carbohydrates, lipids, and other things like electrolytes and stuff. Agriculture has been around for as long as anyone can remember. Everything around you is something agriculture, whether it's the clothes you're wearing, the snacks you eat every day, or even the table you're sitting at. You wouldn't have any of it if it weren't for ag. And so because of this, I feel very passionately about agriculture. And when I see people unknowingly harming the industry just by consuming things like fake meats, it scares me because I want to be involved in ag for the rest of my life. So because of this, I chose to do this as my senior project. I had two parts to my project. The first part, I showed my pigs over the summer, and then the second part, I made a nutritional diagram for show swine. That's what I passed out to y'all. So for the first part, which was showing my pigs, I went to more competitions than I'd ever been to before. I went to 4 fairs across the state of Missouri this summer, and I showed my pigs at all of them, and I got to learn a lot of things, and I got to learn more about the ag industry through all that. My pig, Charlotte, she won overall reserve champion of the Heart of the Ozarks Fair. And this was only because I had started researching nutrition earlier that summer and I implemented some of what I learned into her diet. She won overall reserve because her average daily gain was so high. She gained just about over 3 pounds a day, which is really high for hogs. They typically gain 1 to 2 pounds a day. So because of the nutritional techniques I implemented, I was able to grow my animal more than most of the other kids at West Plains Fair. The second part of this was creating a nutritional plan for show swine. The first thing I did was contact an ADM nutritionist. ADM is just the brand of show feed I use, and so I know that they're really good and they have reliable materials in their feed, so I decided to contact them to get this process started. So for this process, I went to the link on the ADM's website and emailed the ADM nutritionist, and I gave him some contact information and kind of explained what I was trying to do and asked him to get back to me. A couple weeks later, he gave me a call back and he left a voicemail because I missed the call because I was in school. So we ended up playing phone tag for a little bit because our schedules were really conflicting. And after a little while, me and my mentor, Grant Talbert, were able to sit down and interview him. And through this interview, we asked him a bunch of questions. A lot of those are seen on the pamphlet. And so with this pamphlet, I didn't really know what I wanted to do for the nutritional plan part of this. I knew I had room to be creative, but nothing I really looked up really resembled what I had in my brain. So I decided to start from ground zero and make a pamphlet that gives a Q&A section. It has what to feed and exactly when to feed it during the different stages of a hog's life cycle. And it also has tips and tricks for beginners. And so because of this, I was able to share my knowledge about show swine to other people who could really benefit from it. And although this was a really fun project and I learned a lot from it, I still faced a few challenges along the way. The first one was my pig Charlotte, the one that got overall reserve at the Heart of the Ozarks Fair. She actually ended up going blind within the first month of us getting her because she got a really bad case of pink eye. And because of this, the vet told me I probably wouldn't be able to show her. And so that was really scary and a little frustrating because I put a lot of money into her and I was worried that I wouldn't be able to show her and then part of my senior project wouldn't be as good as it could have been. And so I decided to keep working with her and train her as best as I could. And eventually I did get her to the point where she could perform pretty well in the show ring. So it all worked out in the end, which was really good. Then the second challenge I faced was driving to Sedalia. I've drove with my truck and trailer plenty of times, but never 3.5 hours away. And my mom was also in my passenger seat, and she's really stressful to drive with in general. So any turn I made or anything, my mom freaked out. But we made it there safely. And also on the drive up there, we had to stop many times because this was like the beginning of August. So we had to stop a bunch and keep my pigs cool and everything. So it was just kind of hard to time that when driving on the highway and everything also. And then getting a hold of the ADM nutritionist, our schedules just conflicted so much that I was worried I wouldn't have a time to sit down and interview him. And if I didn't get to interview him, then I probably wouldn't have been able to make my pamphlet, or I would have had to completely reroute what I was trying to do for that part of my senior project. So it caused a lot of stress, but at the end of the day, it worked out and it was pretty good. So this project has taught me many things. It's taught me about the effect of artificial meats on our bodies and the environment, and it's given me a way to share my knowledge with other people about the beauty in agriculture. So thank you. Do my judges have any questions?
What branch of agriculture do you plan to pursue?
I want to be an elementary teacher when I grow up, but I also want to have a really big farm. I want to be able to be involved in agriculture for as long as possible and be able to raise my kids in it like I was.
For kids or
All.
all?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
What was your target audience?
Honestly, show kids that didn't know much about nutrition and how to feed their animals, or people that were getting into showing that didn't know exactly what they were doing. Because my first year showing, I was kind of uncertain on what to do, and if I had something like that, it would have been really helpful for me.
Yeah.
hear a fiction story.
We're gonna hear one.
Yeah, and get some tips on for a person that can't catch anything.
Reminding you guys, we are live streaming and we are on Jackson Lee's session. 2584.
What is, I, mine, I can't see the whole research. Just all of these.
Mine's the same way. Cuts off after the first page. Oh,
Yeah.
no, it went on.
Yeah.
I think if you click on it, it'll just go. I don't know what I did, but I can scroll down. So I can't tell you what to do, but
Okay.
if you keep
But
clicking
mine
around,
works.
it'll work. Yeah.
I finally,
There you go.
Yeah,
It's unlocked.
yeah,
That's all I learned from you.
Just keep clicking.
Yeah.
Something will happen. My scroll won't feel anything. I don't know.
No, I
I
felt
don't know
like
how to make
it.
it quieter. Switch.
Yeah, there's.
Right. I like to move around.
Yours is pretty aggressive.
I guess so. My scrolling is. All right.
Still have a couple minutes. Do you want to do it or you want
Are my judges ready? I want to talk to you guys today about an issue that is very near and dear to me, and I see affecting the world as a whole, which is PTSD. Since 2001, over 140,000 veterans have taken their own lives because of this, and that is just the confirmed ones. That is not including any that have done it and were not accounted for. There's also been 108,000 drug overdoses every single year since 2000. The body keeps the score. We're all walking around wounded, carrying the invisible scars of our past. Bessel van der Kolk. This quote is saying that, especially for veterans, this is saying that no matter what you are showing on the outside, you will never be able to heal if you cannot let things go from the past. And many veterans that we see walking around today, they may be okay on the outside. You may think that they are functioning in society just fine. But on the inside of them, they are not okay. They are feeling many different symptoms of PTSD, which we'll get into. But there's so many things that we need to fix with this illness that I feel like aren't addressed enough. So PTSD is classified in different things as it continues. It first starts off as a mental illness, then turns into a disease. It's, depending on how bad it really is where it ends up on that scale. So with PTSD, it comes with three main things: mental issues, physical complications, and social effects. All of these are very big problems. We'll dive into each more a little bit more. Mental effects, you will start off seeing anger problems in veterans. When a veteran comes home from overseas fighting somewhere, they may not want to talk, not because they don't want to be around people, but because sometimes a simple trigger will just change everything. And there's nothing you can do about it without the proper treatment. But sadly, there is no real cure for PTSD. It is one of the few things in today's society that we just can't cure yet. There are programs, which in, I believe it was the early 2010s, there was a program in, I can't remember what state it was, but it was a college. There were 25 veterans admitted into this program, all male. Only 19 of the veterans made it out because the others couldn't withstand everything that was happening inside of them. The six that left the program were not able to finish it because they just couldn't take it. It was so overbearing on top of them that they were in the disease stage of it. They were not able to get out of it or move on from what had happened in their past, causing them to eventually take their own lives, and that's why the program ended, sadly. Leading us into the suicidal thoughts. Suicidal thoughts and substance abuse are two of the main problems with PTSD that don't have a real treatment. Because once you get to the point to where you are experiencing suicidal thoughts and substance abuse, there's nothing you can do about the suicidal thoughts. Substance abuse, there are programs. There are things that you can do to help get over it. There's recovery programs. There's rehabilitation. There's everything that doctors have given us so far. But with the suicidal thoughts, there's no real medicine. There's no cure. There's programs, but a lot of times when veterans get to that point, they don't come back. And it's really sad to say that, but that's the sad reality of it. But then their body starts to change. You will notice in a veteran, when they start the disease, they are just normal. Maybe their mind's off a little bit, but their body's okay. They're just trying to get over things. But if they don't let go, you will start to notice they will grow weaker. They will start to lose any muscles that they have on their body, and they won't function correctly, which then causes diseases. Many diseases actually come from PTSD, which I did not know when I started researching this. But PTSD actually can lead into many other diseases that sometimes don't have a cure, which is one that is in the blood. This blood disease, there's not really a name for it, but this blood disease actually causes your brain to change. You will not be the same person. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Once you get this disease, your brain changes the way it is formed. You will start to lash out. Your anger problems will they will skyrocket. Your hormones will not be the same. Your levels will never come back to normal. It affects everything in your body just because it wasn't taken care of when they first got back. So the societal effects are the ones that we will see. These are ones that people will see, especially the loved ones in the household that live with the veteran. Because like I said earlier when I was talking about anger, veterans don't really let things out when they need to sometimes, which then causes them to push away from loved ones in their house, which can then lead to loneliness. Loneliness is not by choice. They don't want to hurt people around them, so they decide to keep to themselves. And we see this in many different studies, but when they keep to themselves, it's unbearable to watch sometimes because it can tear apart families. And it's not because they don't want to be around their family. It's because they know that if something were to happen, they could hurt their family if it wasn't taken care of in the first place. Excuse me. Then in your everyday life, job interviews. That's a big one that I've read about, was when a veteran comes back from wherever they were off to and they are changed, if they go into a job interview and just one little thing triggers them, that job interview could be blown, which then affects their whole future. Because every time they go into a job interview, they have to make sure that they say everything that won't trigger them, and they have to make sure that the person interviewing them doesn't trigger them. They have to learn how to change the way that they talk. They have to learn to change the way that they do things. It affects every single person now that it is out. It doesn't just affect the family. So my project was Jackson Lee Fishing Guide Service for Veterans. What I did was I took 2 veterans out, Curtis Good, who served in the United States Marines, and Jeff Conger, who served in the United States military. Both men have served for us for, I believe it was in the 1990s is when they both served. And I took them both out on Bull Shoals. I spent 16 hours on the water, 8 hours on the road. So we had quite a bit of time together. The biggest thing that was a trouble with this was the process. The process started out quite easy with finding 2 veterans. Like I said, I knew 2 right off the bat. They were here at school. Curtis Good was our assistant band director for a long time, so I knew him very well. And Jeff Conger works at a local church, but is very involved in the school. So that was the easier part of the process. But then there was learning how to guide. There are not many guides around here for me to learn from. I know of 2 on Bull Shoals and Table Rock. But my mentor was a big help with that. His name was Dwayne French from Mammoth Springs. He's actually a fish biologist down there. So I was able to learn all my skills from him. So that was the most difficult part of the process, besides learning the lake. There's over 80 miles of water on Bull Shoals Lake. I had to condense that down to about 3 that we could fish in one day. So I had to find out where those fish were going to be, and I had to be able to, I couldn't run a long ways because these guys don't go on the lake. They just want to fish. So I didn't run 70 miles like I would if I were by myself. I had to make sure that I put them on the fish without going one end of the lake to the other. I had to pinpoint it very closely. So the trips, like I said, I had no experience with guiding. What I did was I wanted to basically teach myself how to guide because there wasn't a whole lot of help. So I started taking people out on my own, like my family members, friends, those kind of people. I would take them out on my boat just to get used to teaching other people how to do things. And I spent lots of time on the water. I haven't missed a single weekend on the lake since March of 2024. I spent every single weekend on the lake. During the summer, I spend over 20 hours a week on the lake. It's just one of those things that if you want to do something like this, you can't stop. You have to keep going all the time and you have to keep pushing. So with all this, I had to learn how to teach others new skills. So there were a lot of techniques and things that most people don't realize because a lot of people, when they think of fishing, they think, I'm going to go out, throw a worm out, let it sit. If I catch some, yay. If I don't, I'll go home. I'm happy either way. I just got to go out on the water. With this, it's a lot different. A lake is something that you have to learn every single thing about. And it really is kind of amazing when you start to study it. So these trips were something special to me. Both of these men I have known most of my life. And it was amazing to see them out there. I took both of them out 2 separate times. So Mr. Good I took out once in October and Jeff in November. So we went out on 2 trips. But I taught them skills on those 2 trips that they could use on Bull Shoals, but most importantly, they could use them anywhere in the country. Because I have fished anywhere from up north almost to Canada, down to Florida, over to Oklahoma, over to Tennessee. So I fished all over the central region of the United States. So I wanted to teach them skills that I had learned from everywhere, not just somewhere that was close to home. But when I started to teach them these things, I realized that not everybody wants to learn every single thing about fishing. They just wanted to be out there and enjoy it. So that's kind of where I got into this experience with them, where we went into lots of deep conversation. Me and Jeff actually sat down for about an hour during our fishing trip. We just dropped the anchor and sat there, and we talked about how the church in Willow Springs could get the youth involved. I didn't expect that to happen. I expected to take them out there, teach them what I knew, take them home. But by the end of this trip, it was very different. I saw them in a new light, because the whole goal of this trip was to help them release everything that was on their shoulders. They were both stressed about jobs, church, everything, Mr. Good, his coffee shop. It was incredible to see how their mental state changed from when I picked them up that morning to when I dropped them off. But when you do something with a boat, there's always going to be challenges. So last year I was on Stockton Lake and actually had a little accident. And I had a little boat back then, but I planned on doing my project during the summer, because that's when you catch the most fish this area of the country. So I was on Stockton Lake and I actually had a little accident and tore the front end off of my boat. So I had to get a new boat so I could finish this project. Well, when I got the new boat, it's a 20-year-old boat, it had engine problems. So I had to work from May until October just to get those engine problems resolved so that I felt comfortable taking out people on my boat. And then there were the little resources. Like I said, there weren't a whole lot of guides. And then starting my own collection of fishing gear, everybody knows prices are going up. I've spent almost $35,000 in the past year on fishing equipment and a boat just to be able to do this project and continue my passion with the way that I wanted to do it. And a big one, gas money. Boats chug the fuel. So this was a big one. I spend hundreds of dollars every weekend just going to and from the lake and fishing. So that was a big one, especially being a high school kid. You don't have a lot of funds all the time. So I had to learn how to use my resources and stretch them out as much as I could. But the one that a lot of people don't realize is how hard it is to pattern fish on a lake. There are many things that happen during the day that cause fish to just stop biting. Like, for example, weather. If a cloud rolls in over the top of a fish, they won't bite. They may not. They'll just stop the rest of the day. They won't eat. And a fish's brain is about that big. So any little thing that happens to them throughout the day, it'll just ruin it if you don't know how to recover from that. There's many things that happen throughout the day that just hurt the fish. So you have to learn how to get back over the top of them. Winter patterning is struggle too. It's a very big deal. Fish during the winter will sit in about a 5-foot box. So you have to learn how to find those fish, catch the fish, catch more fish out of that pile. It's very difficult, but like I said, when you learn the lake, you learn how to find the fish. So I showed them all those skills, and it really seemed to help them learn how to find them. So the biggest thing with this project was I wanted to show people that we should take more care of our veterans. There's so many things that happen that they don't talk about, that we may never know about. But seeing how it affects them and how it affects society, it's very big to me that we take care of them more, and that there should be more treatment options available for all of our veterans, and that we should accept the fact that there are ones that are still hurting and may not recoup. And maybe next time they get back, we get ahead of this so that we don't see those 140,000 people grow every single year. Thank you. Do my judges have any questions?
Like taking these guys out and, for the getaway, what are your thoughts on forward-facing sonar in this versus your competition?
I think that there are a lot of people that compare forward-facing sonar to poaching. And it is a very big topic in today's society, and a lot of people don't keep up with that. But when you do get into the outdoors world, poaching and forward-facing sonar are two very different things. Poaching, you are killing an animal without it even knowing and without it having a chance. Forward-facing sonar, that fish doesn't have to bite your lure. That fish, you still have to learn how to use it. So in this kind of situation, I don't see a problem with it. I think that it's great because it can help people find fish, and it can help people catch fish if you know how to use it. In tournaments, I still don't see a problem with it because you're still trying to catch fish. It's the same thing that happened 20 years ago with side skin. Everybody said it would hurt everything, but it didn't. The fish are still populating, the fish are still growing, nothing is changing in our wildlife. It's the exact same.
Well, piggyback off that because I have no idea what forward-facing sonar is. But you talk about being a fishing guide. So other than finding the fish, like what else goes into being a guide rather than just taking guys out to fish?
So the biggest thing with being a guide is you have to teach other people how to get around on a boat because that's a big thing. A lot of people fish from the bank. Most people do. When you're on a boat, you have 20 feet to work with, especially on mine. I have a very large bass boat, and I still only have 20 feet to work with. So when I take people out, I have to teach them where to stand on the boat, and a lot of times with forward-facing sonar, which is what we use that day, fish will be 90 foot out in a box about that big. I have to teach them where to stand on the boat and how to position themselves to cast into that square, otherwise they won't even catch fish. So it's a very technical, and a lot of people don't see that, but when you actually start researching into it, or like this, talking about it, it's a lot easier to see how there's a lot more to it than just throwing out and reeling it back in, especially with guided fishing.
In your research, did you find supporting evidence that showed that outdoor experiences could help these veterans with PTSD?
I saw a lot of it. It's not necessarily the outdoor experience part, it's the doing something that allows them to get away from everything part. Because when we were out there on the lake, nobody picked up a cell phone. Nobody had a camera. I mean, I had a camera filming, but I didn't touch it once throughout the day. I just started recording and there we went. We started fishing. So them being able to get away from everything was the part that actually helped them. It wasn't necessarily the fishing.
Do you have any personal experience with PTSD or anything like that, or was that just, was your focus the veterans or PTSD?
It was veterans for me. I have a very high respect for veterans, and I think a lot of people don't nowadays. I think that's a big problem that we see in society anymore, is that people don't understand what they do. People don't understand what they sacrifice and what they could sacrifice in some cases. There's many veterans that don't get the respect they deserve, and most of them don't want you to come up to them and say thank you for your service. That's not what they want. They just want you to understand that they didn't just go over there for the heck of it. They didn't just do that for fun. They wanted to serve and protect the country. And I think a lot of people don't have enough respect for them. So that was the big thing for me, is I wanted to show the respect to them and help them in any way that I could.
I noticed in your research paper that you also found research that shows that the spouses of veterans also suffer.
Yeah, that one, there was a study in the paper. It's been a long time since I've seen that paper, but there was a study, and there was actually a lot of spouses that took their own lives because their husbands or wives took their own lives. So it's, like I talked about with the loved ones in the slideshow, it's a lot more than just pushing away sometimes. Sometimes it leads to multiple suicides, and it really is awful. And kind of the whole purpose of this project was I wanted to see more treatment options for PTSD. Not necessarily just the research part of PTSD, but there's not enough options for veterans sometimes. Thank you.
Dr. Spence, if I put this here, can you still see around me? Okay. Make sure you can still take a gander. Well, I just want to make sure you can see. I guess whenever you are ready. Okay. I figured they gotta read for a while. I get a little long-winded.
I'm gonna put it right here on your sleeve.
Wherever you want to, that's fine. Either way. I'll try not to sniffle in the microphone. A little snotty. Y'all just give me a little head nod when you're ready. Just yeah, whatever you need to do. Just make sure this clicks through good. Perfect. He doesn't have any tissues in here. Okay. Oh, I'm gonna unclip this. I don't think they want to hear me snotty.
Are you sure? No, I'm just kidding.
This time for real. Perfect. You ready? Perfect. Are my judges ready? In rural Missouri, nearly 89% of the total population struggles to find available health care. Rural Missouri makes up about 38% of the total population, which is around 2 million people. As we know, Willow Springs and our surrounding communities, we're rural. We're poor, we're low income. Many people in our areas don't know where their next meal is going to come from, if they're going to have a roof over their head, or if or when they're ever going to be able to see a doctor. Due to these added life stressors, this thing creates wear and tear on the heart. Good evening. My name is Kaylee Pendergrass, and I believe that mental health and our health have a devastating connection. Life is stressful enough as is to then have to worry about if or when you're ever going to be able to see a doctor. In rural Missouri, 1 in 3 people suffer with hypertension. In layman's terms, hypertension is high blood pressure, which is one of the 4 main factors of heart disease, including high cholesterol, obesity, and smoking. In order to go to the doctor, in order to see this, to figure out if you have these issues or diseases, there's a long waiting list. Most of the time, doctors' offices either want you to private pay or have insurance. As we know, sometimes it seems as if insurance companies are working against us. There's always some box you haven't checked or some form that you have not filled out. If or when you're ever able to see a doctor, there's a stigma or a guilt that comes around this. Many people in our area feel guilty. Why should we go see the doctor when we don't know if our kids are going to be provided with another meal? Anxiety and depression is something that stems from this. So there are 2 different factors that stem from anxiety and depression. There's your chemical factors, which are the things in your brain. This is telling you what's going on, and it tells your body why your body is feeling so stressed and going into shutdown mode. And then the biological factors are the things around you. What are you seeing? Are you working long hours? Are you not getting good nutrients? Are you cold? Are you hungry? A lot of this is seen in hospitals. So primarily people with heart failure or heart disease in the hospital, they feel a lot of anxiety and depression. And this is seen as just another symptom along a long list of things. Sometimes the doctors are just like, oh, it's just another side effect of heart disease, when it's really more internal things that are going on. So who is primarily affected? So not just heart disease patients or people in the hospitals with heart issues, it's also our blue collar workers. So blue collar workers primarily in our area are the people who work long hours. They're up before sunrise and they stay out until sunset. These people work long, grueling hours, and they don't really realize how anxiety and depression affects them until it takes that wear and tear out on their heart. Poverty and poor health also go together. So poverty is defined as multidimensionally poor. So this is being poor in your education and your resources and your healthcare and your nutrition. Since poverty and poor health go together, 98% of the people who suffer with anxiety and depression also suffer with heart disease, which then in turn suffer with poverty. So in order to see a doctor and you're not able to pay for it privately and you don't have insurance, you can go with the charity fund. So there are over 3 million charity funds and over 6 million people on a charity fund. So what is a charity fund? A charity fund is where a group or an organization will pay for you to go to the doctor. Most of the time you typically have to give them your taxes or give them some sort of reason why they should pay for you. Only 3% of people on these will ever be able to go and see the doctor. So what are the odds? As I said, 98% of people who are impoverished also suffer with anxiety and depression, which also suffer with heart disease. So all three of these things connect and they go together. Another issue that we face, especially in our area, is the nutrients in our foods. So in California, there's a Whole Foods within every 5 miles. If you don't know what a Whole Foods is, this is a grocery store. They focus on organic, non-GMOs, and non-chemical foods. The freshest that we can find in our area is typically Walmart. Walmart focuses on preservation, not nutrition. They want foods to last the longest and not necessarily be the best for our bodies. They are filled with chemicals, byproducts, and GMOs. This then in turn leads to our high-fat diets. So most of the foods that we eat are over-processed. So they're filled with high fat and high cholesterol, which then in turn hurts our heart because that's one of the 4 main factors of heart disease. So I decided I want to be a part of a change. I knew that I wanted to do something to help people, but I wasn't quite sure how. I knew that my main mission was to make this free. I wanted as many people as possible to be able to come. I wanted things to be safe, free, and effective. So this is a standard when I was looking up on what to do for an event. This is something that really stuck out to me. As we know, sometimes things aren't always safe, they're not free, and even though they're safe and free, how effective are they? So I wanted to do something that was really meaningful. I also knew that I wanted to get the community involved. So the way that I did this is the nurses at the SCC, so the South Central Career Center in West Plains, the student nurses, they needed hours and I needed help. So they were able to come together and help me to get this event going. Okay, Kaylee, so you have all these things you wanted to do, but what did you actually do? So I hosted a free community wellness screening. As you can see there's Mr. Gum getting his blood pressure checked. So what I did at my event was just a basic set of vitals. So you don't really know how important vitals are, but they are so vital to your health. So the things that we checked were your blood pressure, your heart rate, your pulse, and your oxygen saturations. These are things that people kind of just let slip under the rug, but these are really big key factors in finding out what serious issues are going on in your body. In order for this to get out there, I knew I had to get something out there, but I wasn't quite for sure how. So first I created this flyer, which the school posted on their social media, I posted on my social media, and then I printed out and put amongst some local businesses. I then got a hold of Amanda Mendez at the Howell County newspaper, and she is their chief editor and owner. We hosted a one-on-one interview. She got some information for me, I got some information for her, and she put this into 4 different of the newspaper issues. I then was able to get a hold of the Ozark marketing coordinator from the Ozark Marketing radio station, West Plains. They cover over 5 different radio stations, and I was able to get a recorded audio interview on the radio to play for a few days. That way people from other communities outside of Willow Springs would be able to hear. And then, if you know Willow Springs, you know Pizza Americana. I'm currently employed at Pizza Americana, so I'm able to talk to about 50 people a day. And that's, I think, is the best way to get your information out there, is talking. While we're talking about talking, this was a main challenge in my project. About a week leading up to my event, due to unforeseen circumstances, my original plan had to be changed. My original plan was to host free community EKGs. The person I had originally went through had cut off all communication about 7 days prior to my event. So I had to adapt, overcome, and find an alternative plan. Another issue that I faced was availability. As we know, coming into November, that's the end of football season and the beginning of basketball season. We have 4 teams with 2 middle school teams and 2 high school teams and only 3 gyms. So due to some pushing around and me asking some coaches, they thankfully gave me a little bit of gym space for a little bit of time to let me go ahead and get my project gone through. And another challenge that I had was the influx of people. We'd have about a 30-minute spurt where nobody would come in, and I would feel down and defeated, like, man, this didn't really work. And then all of a sudden, 10 people would come in at once. And I was like, oh my goodness, we just could not get them through quick enough. All in all, this was a great project. As we know, people in our area, they're lacking in many things, not just funds, not just their education, and not just their nutrition, but overall knowledge of how devastating heart health really can be to them. I encourage each and every one of you to never stop fighting for what is right. Never stop fighting for mental health and never stop fighting for heart health. I believe that we should be the change that we want to see in the world. Do my judges have any questions?
So I remember that it was a little difficult to find you at
just a little bit. I did get
Yeah.
kind of bounced around. My original plan was to be in the new gym, but
Yeah.
since we're in basketball season, that was a no-go.
Yeah, and, so that was a challenge for you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we had the doors open as big as we could, but due to safety issues, they didn't really want us like have a bid sign like doors open here, unlocked to the school. So it was just kind of having to spread that by word of mouth and trying to get it in the newspaper and on the radio.
So in your research, you talked about poverty and mental health, but did you find that like our area here has a higher incidence of hypertension and other things because of the socioeconomic level?
Yeah, that really affects it a lot. So like I said, 1 in 3 people just in rural Missouri. So the 38% of that population, which is 2 million people, suffer with hypertension. And then that also, once again, goes in hand with heart disease. And then being in our area, we have a lot of blue-collar workers, the people who do have jobs in our area. They're working long, grueling hours, which then in turn is really negatively affecting their hearts.
I've got 3 questions.
Perfect, I got you.
Number 1, how many people did you serve?
50. Yes.
So you mentioned like the lack of Whole Foods, the Walmart thing. So how do we combat that in our area other than bringing in a bunch of Whole Foods stores? Like how can we do better?
You know, I think something that's really not preached enough, I think our school does a great job, our greenhouse. I think that's awesome. I think if we really branch that out to the community more and tell them it's not as difficult as you think to grow a garden, it doesn't cost as much as you think. And I think if somebody did the math, like this is how much it costs to pay for it in the grocery store, and this is how much it costs to eat fresh foods that you grow yourself, I think if somebody compared those numbers, a lot of people would switch over to taking the extra 30 minutes a day to weed out a garden versus driving to the grocery store, spending $6 for a tomato when you can grow one yourself for 3 pennies.
And then what is phlebotomy?
Phlebotomy.
You
So
mentioned that in your bio.
that's the art of drawing blood. So I will be, as soon as I get my diploma, I can take my license and get my licensing. So whenever you're in the hospital, the girls who come in, they're like, lab, can I come in? They're the people who draw your blood. So they come in, I read the script, it tells me whatever tests you need. I collect those tubes, based off of memory, what tests those are. And then we go in, draw your blood, and then we will go run those tests.
And you'll have that out of high school?
Yeah, as soon as I get my diploma, I can take my licensing exam. Yes. Anybody else have any questions?
So I noticed that walking through the showcase, just very briefly, I just saw a couple, but I saw a project on vaping, a project on junk food,
Mhm.
and I know there are a couple others on health issues than yours. So do you think that your generation is starting to figure some of this stuff out?
I definitely think that. I think that we're starting to realize there's a problem. I mean, the older generation, we see them, to be brutal, seeing them dying out early. We're seeing people who are in their 30s, 40s, our parents, our aunts, uncles, we're seeing them start to struggle early now. So why not kind of jump ahead of it? And I know a lot of people in our grade are wanting to go in the healthcare field to maybe be part of the change, to make the world a better place, to be the change that we wish to see. Anybody else? Okay, I'll get anything else. I'm gonna take this bad boy off. I hope you guys can understand this. I think you guys will get one more. Thank you.
Great. It's been a good ride.
It has, yeah.
Right? Well, I've already passed it. Brad and I we're about done, as far as our life expectancy.
Oh,
because
yeah.
I need
Yeah, we've been junk for all of our lives.
I need to do a better job. That was super convicting.
you're okay.
Is the organic section?
Well, yeah, organic helps. Stay away from the iceberg lettuce.
I like that.
That doesn't have much nutrition.
I know.
Once he started answering my question,
Okay, that makes sense.
I knew whenever I seen that's who I had, I knew that. Just because of the controversy that there is. I wanted to see how he would react to such a controversial. He didn't go overboard.
You can go political.
Yeah.
You can both sides, and it says this is the way I feel about it.
And I appreciate that, yes.
Guys know who you're looking at. Still waiting on somebody? Did you say anything? Okay. Okay. Letting you guys know we are live stream, so we are on Vivian Nafaleva, session 2574. That warning was for you specifically, I'm sorry. I need to have the microphone. That works, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, for sure. Can I test it and make sure it works? Okay. Sit down. Okay. Do I need to like talk loud into that one?
I think it'll hear like everything.
You can put it on like the, yeah, that's fine. I don't know like where it works best. Okay, great, thank you. All right, am I good to start? Okay, are my judges ready? All right. The experiences that people have with video games are very diverse. Maybe you play video games very frequently, maybe you played them as a kid but you're not really into it anymore. Maybe your only experience with video games is hearing a teenager yelling profanities from behind their bedroom door. We often think about the impact that games have on us, but how often do we think about the work that goes into making a video game? I want to make games as a career, and to succeed in the game development industry, you can't just have a good idea, you have to understand how to execute it. My name is Vivian Yakovleva, and by applying psychological theories to game development and observing how those principles work in practice, I was able to create a fun and interesting video game. Now, game development and psychology are very intertwined. I find that good games make me think and feel, and I wanted to learn how psychology played into that. Through my research, I looked at player modeling and emotional design and how they apply to recreational games, and then I looked at their applications for educational and serious games as well. So let's begin with player modeling. Player modeling is the study of classifying and describing player behavior. The foremost example of player modeling is that chart on the left there, which is known as Bartle's taxonomy. And it was created by Richard Bartle in order to predict the behaviors of players in the multi-user dungeon game genre. It is comprised of two axes, the y-axis spanning between acting on the game and interacting with the game, and the x-axis spanning between interest in the players of the game and the world of the game. And each quadrant represents a different kind of player. Now, Bartle's taxonomy is a staple of game development. Unfortunately, it is quite outdated because it was made in like 1996, and it is very specific to one genre of video game. Another taxonomy I examined is called the ACE2 taxonomy, created by Thomas Van Dam and Sander Backus as an offshoot of Bartle's taxonomy. The main difference with this one being the x-axis, which now spans from the aesthetics of a game, as in the emotional parts of a game, and the mechanics, meaning the game's systems and how the players can interact. Player modeling is very beneficial in the beginning stages of game development, as it helps game designers predict what tropes a player will enjoy. So they can either lean into those elements of a game or they can subvert them intentionally. Another way that player modeling helps is by allowing game developers to predict players' motivations. And using those motivations, game designers can elicit certain actions or emotions. Emotion on its own is a very important part of game design. The goal for a game designer is to immerse the player in the game, and the best way to do that is to center the emotional experience around the user. There are a couple of ways to go about this, the first and probably easiest being the avatar, as in the character that the player plays within the game. Studies have shown that avatars with a similarity to the player, whether that be through personality or appearance, are more resonant with the player, and it allows them to get more immersed in the game. The avatar is a way for the player to express themselves emotionally within the game. Another element of emotional design is narrative design. When you hear narrative, you probably think of story structure, but it also includes elements such as visual design, sound design, and mechanics. Narrative design, when you pay attention to it, can create a very immersive experience for the end user, and it allows the player to achieve flow and have fun in the game. Now, these principles can also be applied in more practical settings, such as educational and serious games, and this principle is called gamification, which is the use of game elements in outside areas, such as education. Some popular examples are Duolingo, Kahoot, and Prodigy, and the most important aspect of gamification is dynamics. Dynamics is the interaction between the player or student and the game. And dynamics isn't something that can be programmed. It has to be elicited through the combination of different elements in a game. Researchers were able to find that some elements were more beneficial for students, while some detracted for the experience. For instance, game elements that promoted cooperation and autonomy were more resonant with students, whereas game elements that promoted competition and comparison between students were more demotivating. Gamification has been proved time and time again to be an effective learning tool, and it makes sense that these principles would also apply very well to educational games. Now that I had done my research, I was ready to create my product, and I knew from the beginning that I wanted to make a video game. It's been something that I wanted to try my hand at for several years at this point, and I felt ready to finally give it a proper go. And I am proud to say that I was. So without further ado, my senior project product and my very first game, Flightless Fighters. As the title suggests, Flightless Fighters is a video game, a fighting game about penguins. It is created with a pixel art style and chiptune music to give the game a retro feel. There are 6 playable characters corresponding to different species of penguin, and the final game will have all 18 penguin species represented. Now, the concept is rather silly, but the realistic mechanics offer a unique experience for the player and a fun take on the 2D fighter genre. Now, this was a massive undertaking, especially solo, and I was very intimidated by the programming aspect, so I decided to get that out of the way first. The goal for the game was to have 2 playable characters that each had programmed actions and interactions controlled with a controller, with as few bugs as possible. To achieve this, I used a coding structure called the state machine, which allows me to program different states and then switch between them as necessary. Using the state machine, each character can idle, they can move back and forth, and they have 3 attacks: a slap, a peck, and a weapon attack. As far as bug fixing goes, we'll come back to that. Now, design was much more my speed, and I had a lot of fun with this part. I made some buttons, and I imported a pixel art font to fit the vibe of the game. I made a background animation for the characters to fight against, and that splash screen, the title animation you saw earlier, was very fun to do. The bulk of the work came with the character design process. I first started off with a traditional sketch of the character, then I moved on to the first iteration of animation, and I landed on that final version you see there in the corner. I also did some sound design for the game. I created some music, and I created some attack sound effects, and I had my wonderful brother Dan do the announcer voice for the game, because every good fighting game needs an announcer. When the first iteration of Flightless Fighters was done, I wanted to invite some people over to test it out for the first time, so I held a playtest. The purpose of the playtest was to find bugs and issues with the game and get feedback from people who might be interested. This was a very wonderful experience for me, and I really want to thank the people who came by to test out the game. And thanks to their feedback, I was able to find the specific areas of the game that needed improvement. Now, as far as challenges go, I was a little worried that I wouldn't have much to talk about in this section of the game. Unfortunately, I was naive. The amount of bugs that I encountered during the game could fill a presentation on their own. I experienced so many issues. There was a bug that inverted all of your movement if you decided to move backward once. There were multiple bugs that allowed you to attack without attacking for various reasons. And there was a state machine bug that halted all progress on programming until it got fixed. This was by far the most challenging part of the endeavor, and I had a lot of help, so thank you to everyone who helped me fix bugs and solve these issues in my game. But thankfully, I'm becoming a much stronger programmer as a result. So that at least was some consolation. Now, I wasn't expecting to struggle with design, but we are all victims of our own hubris. So the original version of the artwork was frankly bad. It had a very low resolution, so it didn't really look like pixel art. The colors were too dull for the vibe of the game, and the animation was, in practice, far too slow to be in a fighting game. So I had to solve all of those issues, and in order to get those all finished in time for the senior project deadline, I had to finish all of the new animations within 1 week. It took a lot of trial and error and last-minute panic, but eventually we got through it, and I'm very happy with how it turned out in the end. Flightless Fighters as a whole has been very fulfilling, and after only a year of development, it turned out better than I could have ever expected. It's been amazing, and I'm certain that this is the right career path for me. And maybe next time you hear that teenager yelling profanities from their room, it will be my game that they're yelling at. Thank you. Do my judges have any questions?
So in reading your stuff, it says the game is unreleased.
Yes.
So what do you have to do to release it?
Well, it kind of depends on what platforms you want to release it on. So currently, there are a few different distribution platforms. The 2 that I have set up are called itch.io and GameJolt, and those are fairly easy to set up. But I also want to release my game on Steam eventually, which is more high profile, but a lot more people use it. For Steam, I'm actually in the process actively of setting up my Steam account and becoming a partner with their Steamworks program. And that requires me to submit a lot of tax information, and you have to pay a fee to be able to submit a game on there. But yeah, I'm still in the process of that, and hopefully that'll be done maybe even sometime this week.
2 questions.
Yes.
Who was your mentor?
My mentor was Mr. Kent Licklider.
Okay. And then what was your inspiration? Obviously you played a lot of video games.
Yes.
Did you have a specific inspiration for this?
Well, the idea was suggested to me by a friend of mine, and I just thought it was so silly, but also had so much potential. I couldn't resist not making it into a video game. All right, are there any further questions? Yes?
What do you recall what all the different, I can see on your poster there are different weapons for different what are the different
That's a great question. I can actually go through them one by one. So the macaroni here is meant to be like a Viking sort of character, and he's got an axe. The samurai character, the king penguin, has a katana. Let's see, up here we have the little penguin. In real life, the little penguin lives in Australia. They live on one of the southern islands. So he has a machete and a boomerang is his eventual ranged weapon. Up here we have the Gentoo penguin, which is meant to be kind of a rogue character. So she's got a dagger. Down here we have the emperor penguin, which in actuality is the largest penguin. So I thought it would be fitting to make him like a tank. And I gave it a morning star as a weapon, which is like a kind of mace. And this character is meant to be kind of a joke character. This is the chinstrap penguin, and he's a communist. So he's got a sickle, and his other weapon eventually will be a hammer. So there's that. Are there any other questions? Yes, Sadie. Yeah, kind of. There's this concept in fighting games where you have like different like ranges of attack. So for instance, the peck attacks are usually very short and they don't do a whole lot of damage. So they would be classified like as a jab. Then like the weapon attacks, for instance, do a lot more damage, but they usually take a lot more time to like either wind up or cool down from them. So they would be classified as like a heavy attack. But yeah, I hope that answers your question. Is there anything else? Yes?
settled on pixels, but had you gone through any other like planning stages where you were going to do something else or you wanted to do something?
I considered it just doing like regular digital art, not pixel art, but I feel like for like the, what's it called? You know, the feel of the game, I felt like it would be best to make it like very retro, and if you're making a retro game, you have to go with pixel art. So yeah. Is there anything else? Thank you. I assume I need to give you these back. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much.
Is it good?
just Joe sing a song or something? We'll dance. Yeah. Like a high leg kick, something, everybody else. Your tie looks fantastic. Your tie looks fantastic. Didn't I tie it up? I watched the video like 4 times. Ready first? Problem is I can't tie the most. There's like 4 or 5 ties I said, do it here, and I tied it on me and took it off at Andy.
All right, first, I'm gonna put this on you. Let her close.
Are my judges ready? Okay, so in the last 20 to 30 years, schools have really been pushing college on the students and not really have been participating in pushing trade schools. And my name is Chandler McCoggan, and I think that high schools should push to promote trade schools instead of college. So blue collar jobs, their demand is very high nowadays. I mean, you have power lines, you have oil rigs, pipe layers, welders, plumbers, electricians, you name it. There are so many demands for this kind of job, and they are very essential. Without the power lines, without putting them back up, and when they have storms, we wouldn't have any power. We wouldn't be here today where we are. Without electricians, you wouldn't have power in your home. Without oil rig workers and pipe layers, you probably wouldn't have gas to put in your car to make it go. And I'm telling you, it is worth it in the end. Yes, you might get sweaty. Yes, you might get hot. You might be tired by the end of it, but the pay you get is very substantial. For the career I want to go in, I actually want to be a lineman after high school. Some of the contracting jobs offer over $100,000 a year for you to work for them, and that is a lot of the blue collar work you have. There's welders, they make over $100,000. There are just countless jobs in the blue collar market that have 6-figure salaries. So the needs of trade, the schools won't promote trade. They haven't for the last 20 to 30 years. They're always saying, you need college. College is going to get you places. But I think differently, because trade schools, they have a shorter duration of school. Mine that I'm going to is actually only 3 months. The tuition is $12,000 compared to the average college, which is around $20,000. The world needs a trade. It is the center point of America and the world, the power grid. I mean, without that, we wouldn't be anywhere where we are today. And without, like I said, pipe layers, electricians, plumbers, we just wouldn't be in a world that we are today. And high schools, they should promote trade, because it's not just for the wellness of other people, but for the world, because we are in a shortage of the trade people, because high schools are only pushing college and say you need to go to college. Why should you do a trade? Like I said earlier, it does pay very, very well. I have a starting salary of almost $100,000, and that's when I'm in my early 20s, actually about 19 years old when I'll be starting. There's a lot of opportunities. Like I said earlier, there is oil rigs, electricians. I mean, my dad, he's a factory worker. here in Willow, and he didn't even need a college degree for that. The world depends on trades. It makes it go round because without, like I said, without cell towers, we wouldn't have Wi-Fi. I wouldn't be here doing this today if we didn't have people doing the trades. There's a lot of physical activity going into it. I'll have to climb poles all day that are over 30 foot high. My daddy's walking around all the time, doing a lot of stuff around the plant, and it is not small, trust me. Some blue-collar jobs, you only need a high school diploma. You don't have to go to a trade school or a technical school to get one. Factory workers are a very big high school diploma only work, and it doesn't pay what you get for regular trade school afterwards, but it still does pay and has great benefits as well. There are countless jobs in the market. Like I said earlier, there's electricians, plumbers, linemen, factory workers, anything, you name it. It's the most important market. There are plenty of trades out there. You can go to technical school, you can go to lineman school, welding school. There are so many other schools that are cheaper than college and don't take as long. So for my product, I built a pneumatic pump that pumped, connected to a mop station, and it pumped water from the mop station through the pipes and up to the pipes, and it runs all the way to the other side of the plant and goes to our wastewater facility that we have in the building. I experienced the work. I had spent the summer at Jasper last summer, and I'm planning to do it this summer again, and I had a great time. Yes, I did get hot. I had no AC, but it wasn't anything I couldn't deal with. I mean, it wasn't that bad, and I got paid great, and I just had a really fun time doing it and doing this project. Like I said, the career I want to go to is blue collar. I want to be a lineman when I get out of high school, and I think that is one of the best opportunities for me when I get out of high school, and it won't take long for me to get my pet debt paid off for when I do get out. My product, I learned about the pump. I learned the insides and the outs. I learned every small, big part. If there's a part you want to know about, you name it. These are the O-rings that go inside of those pipes right there, and they are very contagious to get in there, very hard. They don't like to cooperate half the time. These are the diaphragms that go into this right here, and it pumps back and forth the water so it doesn't have just a constant flow. It'll pump back and forth. And the check balls also go on top of this for it to balance the water and let it have more of an equal flow than a sporadic flow. I knew the insides and the outs of the pump. Like I said, when I was finished, I could assemble and disassemble it at the end in about 20 minutes. I just got super easy to me because I had to spend a whole 40 hours on this project. I had to spend a lot of time on it. I can now rebuild it easily. Like I said, I could probably rebuild it in about 10 minutes. Disassemble will probably take about the same time, maybe even a little bit shorter, but it's very easy to disassemble and assemble because I had to do it so many times to try and get it perfect and working right. Some of my challenges, learning the parts was actually kind of challenging because the names like the diaphragm or the check balls are kind of confusing at first, and I didn't know where they went. And placing the smaller parts was actually a big challenge for me because my hands are not made for that. I have stubby fingers, and it is very difficult to get the O-rings inside of the pumped to go where I need them to go, and it is very, very annoying. Finding and ordering the parts. We had to order a couple of parts because some of the ones we were using were broken and we need to replace them. And some of them didn't come in until late. About a week left in my apprenticeship, so we had to kind of hurry up on that and get it done. So, like I said before, I think colleges and high school should promote trade school instead of college. Thank you. Do my judges have any questions? Go ahead.
Do you feel like the Q experience with the pump would give you an edge on working on other
Yeah, I think it would, because I mean, at the very end, it's a simple component. There's only a certain amount of parts, and I've actually been working for parts I worked for parts during the summer, so I know a lot about engines and stuff from the summer.
that have electricity or like the part that you were working
No, it's actually all air compressed, so air pumps through it at high PSIs. I think it's 100 to 110 PSI it pumps through. So there's not any electricity running through it or anything.
Despite our ideological differences in the importance of college, I agree with you that schools should promote trade schools more often. Are you thinking it should be in the forum, but what are you thinking they should do? Talk about it more, or give like sample classes?
I think sample classes would be a great idea, but I think they should get like you know how they bring professors from college down here to visit. I think they should do the same with trades.
Do you think they should focus on the trade schools more than college, or about an equal amount, or say less, or how much proportion to college promotion?
I think it should be about the same, because in the end it's whatever you want to do and it's your decision. But I'm just trying to influence a couple people. Maybe it'll be right for them. You never know.
Looking at it from, I know going to college, you mentioned tuition, the person can get student loans.
Mm-hmm.
In your research, or do you know, or is there financial aid for people that want to go the trade route, like you mentioned, going to lineman school?
Yes, you can actually get financial aids from there. The school I want to go to, the North American Lineman School in Tennessee, actually does provide financial aid for people. And I've looked into it. A lot of the trade schools actually do have financial aid, and no more questions? Okay.